Hi, I'm Janome Educator Katy Mitchell, and today we're going to be making a pair of pajama bottoms, pants, using the new MyLock 454D serger. Now this serger has it all. It's easier to thread, it's smooth, it's like a dream. So whether you're beginner serger or you've already had a serger and you know what you're doing, you're going to love this machine. So today we're going to be using Simplicity pattern 9861 to make our pajama bottoms. Very simple pattern, but you want to familiarize yourself with the cutting instructions, the sewing instructions on this. We're also going to be using our CoverPro 3000 to do the casing on the top of the PJs. You don't have to have a CoverPro, but it sure makes a really nice finished look, and I'll tell you how to use your regular sewing machine to do that when we're done. So follow me along. Hopefully I'll be able to tell you some tips and tricks along the way, and you might learn something, and we're going to have a great time. So today we're going to be using a 4-thread stitch on the MyLock 454D. Now this machine has a lot of different stitches in it. It has a 3-stitch. You can do rolled hems, picot, gathering, ruffles are a blast, but today we're doing the 4. Now, if you have any problems with figuring out how to thread this machine, there's always the manual, but we do have a video that we're going to tag for you that you can go out and watch and see how it's done. Now also today, I'm using our extra wide table. This is great, it just slides right on, but it helps relieve some of the weight when you're sewing and keeps things level with your machine. Also, I'm using the waste chip box. It's bigger than the one that comes with it, so you can get more of your trash and thread and whatever in it, and it stays attached to your machine really good. So I've already got my machine set up with my 4 spools of thread, but I want to talk to you about the tension a little bit and some of the other dials that come on the machine. Right now my tension's all set at 3 going across, which is standard, and it seems to work really good whether I'm using a real thin sheer fabric all the way up to denim. Now sometimes, yes, I will have to adjust them accordingly, and I can look in my instruction book and find out what to do. Also on the side over here, the first knob is my stitch length. It's like on a regular sewing machine. I can move it to make it smaller or longer, but 3 is pretty much the standard as well. My differential feet I have set at 1, which is right smack in the middle, and I usually don't have to adjust that too much either. And we're ready to start sewing. So we're going to talk about your seam allowance. Now you're going to look through your pattern and find out what they're telling you to do it at. Most of the time when you do garment construction, it's a 5/8 inch seam allowance, but there are times when they might say a 1/4 inch or even a 1/2 inch. But for today's project, we're doing a 5/8 inch seam allowance. On our 454D serger, what's really nice about it is on my foot, I have 2 ridges that line up with my needles. So it shows me needle 1 and needle 2. I also have out there different little grooves that give me my seam allowance amount. So if I take my little guide and I measure from my first needle out, I can see that 5/8 inch is right here. So when I'm sewing, the edge of my fabric is going to be right here, and that's the part that's going to get caught up with my blade. It'll end up looking very similar to this. And you're also going to ask too, what do you use? Do you use pins? Do you use clips? These type of things. Clips are great. They do hold your fabrics together, but I am a pin girl. I like to use a straight pin. I also make sure that the end of it is to the right, so as I'm serging, I can go ahead and pull that out and put it back where it belongs, and I don't get it into my blade. So now we've got everything set up. Let's get our pattern and let's get sewing. As you can see, I've already got my pattern cut out. I've got my cuffs and I've got the front and the back of my pajama bottoms. We're going to go ahead and get them going. I'm going to take my front and my back and match up the inner seam. So with right sides together, so I've got my front and my back inner seam lined up. Now you can pin it or not. This is a pretty long seam and it's quite straightforward for you. And in this case, I'm not going to pin it. I'm just taking it over. I'm going to line it up on the 5/8 inch and sew straight down. I went ahead and changed pieced in between, and I'm just going to connect and do the same thing with another side. Put my right sides together and stitch. I'm going to cut them apart. I'm not going to worry about these little tails because they'll get serged off, cut off with the blade on the next seam. So this is what it's going to look like, basically. It's my front and the back, and this section right here is the crotch, which we're going to be sewing next. Putting right sides together, and I'm going to pin this time. Line up my seams, leave my tails up because I will cut those off when I serge the next seam. Now, when I look at this, pajama crotches are a lot longer than a standard crotch on a pair of pants or something, so it really kind of threw me for a loop. But knowing that I have a front and a back, when I cut it out, my front side will have a little notch, the back side is a fatter notch. As I serge the back of it and the front, I also like to cut a piece of grosgrain ribbon, and I'm going to go ahead and fold it in half, and I'm going to put it close to the top up here and pin it down. Why I do this is so I'll know what the back is when I'm done, because a lot of times they're hard to tell. So here we go. Again, here's my tails. I tend to turn my seams to go to the back. Coming up on that little bit of ribbon, I want to go ahead and remove my straight pin, line it up a little bit better. So now my crotch is sewn. I've got the little tag that tells me what the back of my project is. Next part's real easy. I'm going to open it up, and I'm going to bring up the front to the back, right sides together, and I'm going to sew down those side seams. Again, if you want to pin, you can, but it is such a straight, easy thing to do. I'm not going to pin on this one. I'm just going to hold it together and go for it. Now, as I sew along, yes, you can readjust and make sure things are lined up better. first side is done, and now I'm going to get ready to do the second side. And just like that, basically my pants are put together. I'm going to turn them right side out. And look at that. Next, we're on to doing the cuffs for the bottom of the pants. So now that we have our pajama bottoms constructed, we need to put the cuffs on. Again, we're going to have our cuff fabric, and we're going to take it to the serger and sew our seams. Again, I'm chain piecing this. Makes it a lot easier. So I've got them sewn right here, but I need to turn them right sides together, or wrong sides together rather, so the right side is on the outside. I'm going to line up the seams, put one right on top of the other, and I'm going to pin it. Make it nice and smooth, and I'm going to pin the other side as well. And I'll do this to both cuffs. Now when I go to put it on the actual bottom of the pant, there are some little notches that were in the pattern that were cut out. One is right here for lining up, and the other one is right here for lining up. So that's what we're going to do. I'm going to take this, I'm going to put my pant leg inside, and I'm going to take that notch, match it up to this notch, and pin. I'm also going to move down to the seam, and my seams are going to line up together, and I'll pin there as well. Then I'm just going to kind of toggle it a little bit to make sure everything fits inside, and pin it again at the other seam. And off to the serger I go. Now when I do cuffs, I start kind of on a slant to get out to that 5/8 inch seam. And I am going to pull my cuff and pant leg at the same time so they all line up together. And again, you want to pull out your pins before you get to that blade so you don't cut your blade, break it, cut your pins. And I'm almost back to my beginning point where I'm just going to sew straight on. And I sew off. Now I will have a little tail that's here, and it depends on what you want to do with it. Personally, I just pull it a little bit like this, and it kind of knots right here. And then I'm going to take my scissors and just nip it off. Some people like to use fray check to put a little dab on there. It's kind of like a little glue. Other people, believe it or not, put it through a needle and weave it through. But I don't. I do the simple way. And there is one cuff seam. If you have something like this that sticks out because that is the little bit we sewed off, it just comes right off because it was cut with your blade. And there's your cuff. And now we're going to do the same thing with the other leg. So now, look, both cuffs are done. Pretty cool looking, huh? We've got our pants put together, but we still have to do the casing part where your elastic's going to go into. Now, if you don't have the CoverPro 3000 or another CoverPro machine, there's a simple way to do it. I like to take it to my serger and serge just the edge of it all the way around, and then I'm going to measure what the pattern instructions tell me to do to turn down for my casing, and I'll take it to my regular sewing machine and stitch that down for the casing. But in this case, we're going to take it over to the CoverPro 3000. I'm going to see what that can do for us. As you can see, here's my CoverPro 3000. I've got it set up with 3 needles. You can do 2 needles or even 1 needle if you want to, but 3 looks really pretty nice. 4 spools of thread, and I'm ready to go. On my casing for my pajama bottoms, I've gone ahead and measured up 1.5 inches according to the pattern instructions, and I've put that all the way around. Now there's a couple different ways to put your elastic in the casing. One is sometimes people leave an opening in the casing on the bottom, but because I'm using the CoverPro and I really like the pretty stitch, I decided to open up the seam a little bit to get that elastic through there. Everything is pinned, ironed down, and we're ready to sew. I'm going to go ahead and pull out my pin so I don't sew over it and get my pants lined up. I have a little mark here on the side to where I know my 1.5 inches is at, and lower my foot and start sewing. Now, when I get to this point of the end meeting the beginning, I'm going to stitch over those a little bit before I lift up my foot and pull out. I'm going to go ahead and trim off. There will be some excess thread, which is no problem. But what I'm going to do, it pulled the thread to the back for me, and these threads right here, I can go ahead with a little straight pin and plop them to the back so you won't see them at all either. I have my opening for my elastic to go through. I'm going to use the pattern, or whoever you're making these for, you want to measure around their waist. I think it's about 1 inch you cut off because you do overlap, but that will be seamed through, stitched in, and your pants will be done. But look at this stitch. Isn't that gorgeous? And on the inside, even though I went over a little bit in places, I can trim that up and make it a real nice, even look. But look how gorgeous that is. So we are done with our pajama bottoms, except for putting your elastic in, which is no biggie, but look at those. How cute are they? So I hope you enjoyed sewing along with me on our MyLock 454D serger. As you can see, it's very easy to use. It's awesome. Also, our CoverPro 3000, another nice tool to have in your sewing room. Be sure and go and visit our Janome dealers and do a test drive on them and see what fits for you. I think you'll really enjoy it. Until next time, happy sewing.